Hello everybody, Pancakes here, and what do we have here? This is some Titanfall gameplay, yeah. I just picked up my Xbox One yesterday. I'm enjoying it quite a bit, although it's got a bit of a learning curve. The Xbox One has a pretty interesting dashboard interface, so that's something I have to get used to. But what you see on the screen here is my very first match of Titanfall ever. I was actually playing this with an Xbox Live buddy of mine. He has a YouTube channel by the name of XShorty50X. He's a pretty cool guy, good channel, lots of good videos. But anyway, so yeah, we were playing some Titanfall together, and you know, I enjoy the game. That's kind of my first impression of it. Of course, this being my first gameplay and also my very first game that I'd ever played on the Xbox One, it's a little bit rough around the edges, especially since the control freaks don't fit on the new Xbox One controller, given the Xbox One controller has, how do you say, smaller thumbsticks, I guess. So I've got a new set of control freaks designed specifically for the Xbox One on the way, but as of now I'm kind of having to play without the control freaks, which feels rather awkward given I've been using those for the last like 3 years. So that's a little strange, but hopefully, you know, that can kind of sort itself out. But nevertheless, hopefully you guys enjoy the video. I think the first thing I should probably talk about here is my overall first impressions of the game. Do I like it? Do I dislike it? So many questions, oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I do like the game. I don't know if I've said this already, but I do like the game. I enjoy it quite a bit. You know, I've played it maybe 4 or 5 hours so far, so not a lot, but I've played it enough to kind of generate a first impression, and so far I've been having a lot of fun. And I can kind of go into a little bit more specifics here. I'd say, you know, probably the biggest thing that stands out to me that I look for in a shooter is the controls. Do they feel responsive? Do they feel smooth? Because in my personal opinion, when it comes to first-person shooters, they require such precise movements of the thumbsticks in order to be able to aim accurately, that if a game doesn't have very, very smooth, very, very responsive controls, that can completely sour the entire experience. And the good news is Titanfall does, in fact, have very smooth and very responsive controls. I mean, it was, after all, made by the guys that did Modern Warfare 2, which, you know, despite me not being the biggest fan of the game, I do still personally feel that Modern Warfare 2 had probably some of the butteriest, is that even a word? I don't know. It is now. It had some of the most buttery controls of any shooter that I had ever played. The controls feel so smooth and so good in your hands. And Titanfall, well, I don't know if it feels that good because I haven't played it in a day, or I just, you know, I haven't played it since last night. But I do feel the controls feel very good, very smooth, very responsive, and that's something that's a huge plus. So that's good. Also, the maps feel like they've been designed very well. It's difficult. I can see the challenges in trying to design a cohesive map that is able to incorporate the free running aspect of the game, which is awesome, and I'll get into that in a little bit, and the Titans, you know, to be able to incorporate all of these different gameplay elements into a map that makes sense and is balanced. That is hard. And I gotta give Respawn credit. They've done a good job with the maps. And now, I'm sure as time progresses, I'll find maps I don't like. I'll find maps that kind of just ruffle my jimmies, so to speak. But, you know, so far anyway, there aren't any maps that just completely stick out to me as being downright awful. And I've been having a lot of fun with pretty much all of the maps that I have played so far. And I've played quite a few. I did go a little over halfway through the campaign, so I do have some perspective on this. Not a lot, but some. And anyway, so far I have been enjoying the maps. And of course, as I said, free running. Now, I know a lot of people have said that this game is basically Call of Duty with mechs. And if there was no free running, that wouldn't be all that inaccurate. However, there are a lot of differences from Call of Duty, which is why I think Titanfall is its own game. The first thing, of course, is the addition of Spectres and Grunts. They are basically like the minions from, you know, various MOBA games like League of Legends, where you can kind of farm them for your Titans and things like that, or challenges, or whatever it is that you want to do. That is new. That is not in Call of Duty. Of course, the AI and the Spectres and the Grunts are downright awful, But, you know, that doesn't really matter. It's still fun to kill them over and over again. And it is, in some weird, strange way, it is satisfying. And of course, I'd say the biggest difference is the whole free running aspect, of course. You know, you can double jump, you can kind of, you know, there's just all kinds of different, you know, movements that you can do in the game, and you can access places that, you know, would otherwise be impossible to access. And the maps are designed for that. There's a very vertical nature of the game. And I enjoy that quite a bit, you know. It reminds me a lot of sort of the old school shooters like Quake or Unreal, where, you know, mobility was such a huge factor in those games. And, you know, it kind of brings me back to those days a little bit. Although even with that, I can't really think of any game that has emphasized the freedom of movement quite as much as Titanfall has. And, you know, it is an interesting mechanic. It is unique to Titanfall, generally. And it is enough, in my opinion, to kind of differentiate it from Call of Duty and make it sort of its own game. So that's something that I really have had a lot of fun with Titanfall. And certainly, as I play the game more, I'll figure out more and more different ways you can use free running in order to, you know, enhance my gameplay, to enhance what I'm doing. But you know, it is a game with a bit of a learning curve. There's a lot to learn with Titanfall, and I'm sure it's going to be a lot of fun. However, no game, however fun it may be, is perfect. And Titanfall is no exception to that rule. Fortunately, there aren't too many complaints I have with the game. I'd say the biggest one is probably the lack of content, in terms of just the amount of content there is. Now, I understand that Respawn Games said that the reason why they took out the single-player campaign was simply because when it came to Call of Duty and probably Battlefield, not many people were playing the single-player campaign. So they figured, hey, if nobody's playing it, why not just focus on the multiplayer? Now, that in and of itself is not necessarily a bad thing. However, there are some drawbacks to that if, and that is the case here, they don't add a lot more content into the multiplayer. So yeah, you don't want to do any single player, that's fine, but unfortunately, they didn't, you know, add a lot more into the multiplayer. The multiplayer, feature-wise, is actually rather lacking. There's only a few game types. There aren't very many things you can unlock. There are some cool features, like the burn cards and stuff like that. But overall, you know, for a game that does not have a single-player campaign, there isn't all that much in the multiplayer. It's unfortunate. You know, and I hope that with the inevitable Titanfall 2, I do hope that they do include more features into the game. But, you know, as of now, with Titanfall, I like the game. I'm having a lot of fun with it. I'm not going to sit here and say you shouldn't buy it, because I do think you should. If you like shooters, it is a great game. But in terms of features, multiplayer features, I have to say, you know, given the fact that it is an online-only multiplayer game, I was expecting a bit more in terms of there being... you know, some, you know, in terms of there being content, you know, things to do. So that's something that kind of bums me out a little bit. And that's probably my biggest complaint so far. You know, it's a good game. I am enjoying it. I'm glad I bought it. But this is, if I am to pick out a complaint right now, here and now, that is probably the main thing I'd complain about, is the lack of content to justify that $60 price tag. But that's just me. You know, some people may disagree. That happens. But yeah, I think that kind of sums up my overall first impressions of the game. You know, I haven't had enough time to play it to really be able to say definitively whether it's good or bad. I don't want to end up with egg on my face like I did with Modern Warfare 2, where I proclaimed that to be an amazing game. I'm not going to do that here. It's a fun game so far, however, that may be subject to change depending on how things go over the next couple of months, right? It takes a while to kind of be able to formulate, in my mind, a really accurate opinion on a game, especially a game like this where you know, a lot of it is so dependent on the community and how people start to exploit different features within the game. But like I said, good game. I'm enjoying it. I'd recommend it. And I think with all of that said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys next time.